Hello and welcome to the Foxcatcher Preview. My name's Julian Balance, joined up in Sydney by the one and only Nick Ashman. How's the week been, Nico? NRL Grand Final week too, by the way, up there.
Yeah, they got rid of aerial ping pong last week down there so we can focus on the real code of football. NRL's your mob, Storm versus the Broncos, not a Sydney team in sight this year, mate. So we'll see how things unfold. But, hey, before that, we've got a massive day of racing out at Randwick on Saturday. Epsom Handicap Day, 3 Group 1s, the premiere as well, vital lead up to the Everest in a couple of weeks' time. It's hard not to get excited. And on top of all that, we've got the 2-year-olds stepping out for the first time in the Jim Crack and the Breeders' Plate. So we'll get a bit of an insight as to how things are going to unfold for the big Group 1s in 2026.
Absolutely. We've got a bucket load to get through, so we're extending the show out here for the viewers because we have just got so much to get through. We want to cover it in proper detail, so let's kick off. Let's start with Flemington. Turnbull Stakes Day, rail out 9 metres the entire circuit. Going to be on a good 4, no issue there. In terms of the intel of how I think it's going to play the straight, this is interesting. When the rail goes out, the return on investment numbers really start to even right up. So usually in the last 18 months to 2 years, we've always been saying middle to wide lanes play the best. But when this rail gets out to as far as what it does, the inside actually just becomes just as good as especially the middle. And to be honest, the outside just drops off a little bit compared to sort of its higher ROI that we get usually. So pretty even across, I think, in terms of the straight. Circle, well, leaders and backmarkers are the low percentage play. So it's pretty well the bookends, and you just want to be in between that mix in terms of your position in running. It's not to say your leaders can't win, but it's just they're not as solid as, say, at a Caulfield or a Moonee Valley in certain circumstances. So that's how I set up. In terms of your work for the lanes, mate, is there anything there that you want to add for the viewers out there with Flemington?
It's pretty much exactly what you said, Jules. Through the middle is going to be the place to be. I think in those straight races, it won't be such a disadvantage to be down towards the inside as it can be at Flemington. But through the middle, stalking the pace, everything echoes as what you've said previously is what I've got here.
Beautiful. So that's the intel for Flemington. Let's get to the feature race. It's the Turnbull Stakes, and, well, this is the points bet market, and it's a ripper. Top of the tree, obviously she's always going to be top of the tree because she's anchored down there with that number from the Cox plate. So she's always going to be, and I talk of Via Sistina. Aliana, good solid support for this horse. Also some support, early support since Wednesday afternoon. Sir Dalius. Interested to see where you've got this horse mapping compared to me. Nico a little bit later. Antino, half yours. There are other horses that are given a bit of a chance in this race. Let's get to the map because this is really important. There's so much to talk about with this race, and we'll just start with the map and then we'll probably pick our way through it in terms of the race shapes that certain horses are coming out of and how that's going to be advantageous or disadvantaged in terms of how we think this race evolves. 3 weeks ago for a lot of these horses, they came out of the Mackay Diva and it was an extremely slowly run race. I don't think we get the setup like that this week due to the fact that there's a horse called River of Stars that's been thrown into the mix here, and I think it rolls forward from that sort of middle gate. I think Sir Dalius from 14, this is my opinion, and this will start here and then I'll get your opinion on it. I think Sir Dalius can roll across and Craig can end up outside leader, and I think Golden Path, who some would possibly think can lead this race, I reckon with them thinking we just want to be mindful, Caulfield Cup, they'll probably take leaders back. They're the first 3 horses I'm going to start with. Any disagreement there?
Not really, no. I think you've got it pretty much right. I mean, Sir Dalius has got really no option unless he wants to go back to the tail and ride through the line. He's got no option but to sort of spear across and go and sit outside lead. I agree with you about River of Stars. It looks a play to put her into the race. Look, she has led previously anyway, so there's no massive shock there. Golden Path, I agree with you. Grand final in 2 weeks' time. Probably just going to take a sit in behind the pace, and half yours is probably the horse that gets the best run in transit.
I think, and that's where we're going to get to. So I think half yours can either be 1-1, or if maybe a horse like Adelaide River wants to push a little bit hard early doors and then probably eventually gets the back maybe of Sir Dalius, then I think Jamie Mellon would be happy to be sort of in the first 6. But it definitely looks to be the map horse. I think Via Sistina ends up 3-back rail. I think probably just out sort of speed. I think J-Mac would probably want to just be 1 pair ahead of, say, a horse like Zardozi, who probably goes back the inside of that. I think Aliana gets the back of half yours, Nico. And then Antino probably gets the back of Aliana, I would have thought. And then horses like Middle Earth and Land Legend probably get the backside of them. And then you got to look at the 3-wide line, because at some stage the 3-wide line is going to have to develop. It will evolve at some stage. And I thought a horse like Moira or even Deacon possibly could roll forward, and Deacon might end up being posted. I know it's drawn inside Sir Delius. He could make it difficult for Craig, to be honest, Deacon. If they decided to go, we want to be really aggressive and get outside leader, then it could make it a little bit tricky for Craig with Sir Delius if they decided to do that. But again, Deacon's probably looking at a Melbourne Cup, so they don't need to torch it right now. And Young Werther probably ends up in the 3-wide line somewhere like that. So you happy with that map as a starting point?
Yeah, I think it's pretty spot on, Jules. I mean, I think the tempo would be a good rolling tempo, a good even maybe genuine gallop with River of Stars leading. You've got to remember the 2,000-metre start point at Flemington, a long run until they get to that long sweeping bend. So plenty of time for Sir Delius and Craig Williams to get across the face of the field. I don't think they're going to want to bustle him out. They don't want to teach him bad habits. The Underwood, I know he wasn't far off them there in the run, but it was a very slowly run race. So they don't want to sort of get him over racing at 2,000 metres when he's got a Melbourne Cup goal. So they'll be keen to just sort of flop out, let him take his time. If horses like Deacon, as you said, want to kick up underneath him, what it's going to do is take that race pace beyond genuine, and that'll create gaps for him to drop into anyway. So I think whilst the wide gate does look possibly problematic, I think there's enough time for Craig to slot in. I guess the only other thing to talk about is Via Sistina. You've got a 3-back along the rail. She's going to hope that the field does string out. And J-Mac, more importantly, is going to hope that the gaps appear for her to get off the rail. So he's got the reverse Craig Williams problem. Craig's looking for the gaps to appear to slot in. J-Mac's looking for the gaps to appear to slot out.
I think there's plenty to discuss here, and I want to get your thoughts on the Makybe Diva overall, and that it was a slowly run race, and that Via Sistina in particularly didn't sprint. And then the commentary, the narrative coming out of it from the camp was that, well, she never performs in slowly run races. And we spoke about it in the review that I actually disagree with that, because we've seen her be able to win first up in a Winx, I think it was, or one of those races over 1,400 metres, and she broke 11, getting over the top of, I think at that stage it was a horse called Zugotcha who sat on speed and sort of had the map advantage, and she absolutely accelerated. So I feel like that's not the real narrative. The narrative is, was Waller training the wheels off Aliana and Via Sistina to have them ready for the 2,000-metre runs? And that might have been hard work going into that 1,600 metres. They might have been doing really strong work leading up to that 1,600 metres, which sort of left them a little bit flat and, as you could say, a bit dour. That's my take on it. Now, the other take on it is, if you think that he hasn't trained the wheels off them, then I'm absolutely petrified that Via Sistina's gone, because she had she should have performed better than that. So my only hope, if you're in the Via Sistina camp, is that, yep, he's trained the wheels off her and now she's ready to explode. Any thoughts on that kind of Mo Jumbo?
Look, I think second up, she just goes flat every preparation. She did it last year in the Makybe Diva. I know it was a heavy track, but again in the autumn, I know she won the Chipping Norton second up from a spell, but the figures out of it were not fantastic. She did run the best last 200 metres of the race in the Chipping Norton, so it was a real tradesman-like victory. She only just got there, and it was nothing like the horse that we saw win a Cox Plate only a few months earlier. So I'm happy to give her a little bit of a pass mark. The worrying thing for her is not just the map, it's the fact that Aliana has, on 2 occasions now, either beaten her or gotten very close to beating her. One was in the Winx Stakes, and then, of course, last time out she actually beat her. Via's last 200 metres in the Makybe Diva was the 3rd best for the race. Aliana and I think Antino went better than her over the last 200 metres. So it's one thing to say you're out sprinted. That race did go on from the 600-metre mark. Mr. Brightside took off at the 600 in the Makybe Diva. It was a great ride by Craig out in front. So she was able to build momentum, but she never really got any quicker than the horses around her. That's the concerning thing. Whereas second up in the Chipping Norton, yes, between the 6 and the 4, she had the second fastest split. Between the 4 and the 2, she had the 4th fastest split for the race. So, again, she struggles to accelerate. But the last 200 metres in the Chipping Norton, second up in the autumn, she had the fastest last 200 metres. Once everyone started to tire, she was building into it. That wasn't the case in the Makybe Diva, and that is the small concern that I think you've quite rightly pointed out.
Yeah, and it's just whether maybe, into this second up that, it just really increases their training loads. I don't know how it is. You could sort of put it into perspective of like swimmers. They really increase their training loads, and then when they get to like the races that they really want to compete in, they taper right off. And I feel like, is that what he does with Via Sistina and possibly Aliana going into these second up runs, which then creates this impression that they've gone flat, but it's just that their training loads are just so big that's the best they can perform at, knowing the third up and fourth up they're going to explode because they've got that base now with them. So that's interesting. The other point here is, mate, is that Half Yours is just about the only horse in this race that's had the go at 2,000 metres this prep. And I think that puts this horse right into the game in the fact that it was a fast run, 2,000 metres at the Naturalism. Yes, it was in lesser class. Yes, this is first go weight for age for this horse. But to have that base compared to the others, I think with the map, gives him an almighty chance in this race, surely.
Yeah, it does. Him and Adelaide River both come off 2,000-metre races. Adelaide River in a fast run Kingston Town Stakes as well. You might recall we were talking about that on the review show only recently. So, and this is the thing. If River of Stars goes along in front, everyone's sort of talking about River of Stars going along in front and then providing the way for Via Sistina to get off the rail. The small concern is that she's coming out of a slowly run race, as you said, going to a really fast run race. That's not really the ideal setup either. So, look, it's an interesting race. 8 of the last 20 winners of the Turnbull Stakes have won at double digits. It is a real blowouts race. And I think because it's at that awkward stage of a preparation where it's getting close to, I know you hate the term, the grand finals for a lot of horses, but it's quite often the run before the grand final. It's if you're going to a Caulfield Cup, this is your last run, presumably. If you're going to a Cox Plate, it's your last run. And even horses going towards a Melbourne Cup, they're starting to look good on Turnbull Stakes Day, as we've historically known, but they're still not quite at their peak. So it's a little bit murky to try and work out. It's not always a case of, hey, that's the best horse. It's going to go out and win.
Yeah, totally. And I think, without winning and running second, you have to perform on Turnbull Stakes Day. I think there's no real, whether it be, I think, in Sydney for Epsom Day or for in Melbourne, wherever you're going to be down the spring, I think you need to be running a really good race. I don't think you can put in a real shocker and then just think you're going to be able to turn it around really quickly, whether it be in 2 weeks or 3 weeks for whatever maybe the grand final might be. So I think you want your horse running well on Turnbull Stakes Day if you're looking from a futures perspective and you're just going, okay, this is what is my pass mark. You need it to be a good, strong run, especially through the line.
Yeah, and look, I mean, that's highlighted by the fact that since the turn of the century, since the year 2000, 9 Melbourne Cup and 9 Caulfield Cup winners have come through the Turnbull, and 8 Cox Plate winners have come through the Turnbull. So it's often a really good guide to future spring success.
Do you want to play in the race very quickly? Would you play in the race?
Yeah, I'm pretty keen on Aliana. I think, this is her time to shine. She meets Via Sistina a kilo and a half better for beating her last time out in the Mackay Diva States. There was nothing between them in the Wing Stakes first up. I think she's the budding star, the budding staying star, sort of 2,000, 2,400 metre star on the Australian racetrack. And just getting in there with 55 kilos, a little bit off the, this is it for her. Flemington, I think, is going to be really her track as well. And I think she can win this race and prove Chris Waller right that she deserves a spot in the Cox Plate and not so much the Caulfield Cup.
Yeah, she's always looked to be a big track horse. So I totally agree with that, with everything that you say.
What about you?
I'm going to be playing Half Yours. I just think he's coming out of I think he's the map horse. I think if he drew bad, they'd go back, they'd take their medicine, and I don't think he'd be able to get into the race, and he'd probably run on and it'd be okay to tick over. I just think he's in the right spot, right time. I just really love that naturalism number. I think it's the second go at 2,000 metres is usually the best of the 2,000 metre runs. Just reckon he might just catch a couple of these, just maybe a quarter of a run short or a third of a run short. And if they are, I reckon he can be the one at double figures. So I'm playing in that. Let's get to pin the tail, mate. So we're going to obviously look at Via Sistina, but quickly the leaderboard. It's turned very quickly in the last 3 weeks. I'm now 5-4 up. You would not believe it.
Wow.
Tempted last week in the Golden Rose. We've spoken about that race in depth. Geez, they went enormous. But Tempted ended up SPing points bet $3. You were $3.60. I was $3.20. I get the chocolates there. Now we're Via Sistina. Very quickly, your price?
I'm going 275. I think she'll drift a little bit more from where she is at the moment, but I just think that big number and her tight SP is going to keep her under $3.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Because I thought she was going to drift from her price in the Mackay, and she ended up actually continuing to firm in and started at $1.65 or $1.70. And it's like that number just anchors them so far, just anchors her down so far. Anyway, I'm taking that anchor on because I'm going a bit bigger than you. I'm going $3. I think the market at some stage, maybe from a map perspective and maybe race shapes perspective, says, no, we're going to try and get some money out of you. So $3 me via Sistina. You're $2.75. That's pin the tail. Righto, let's get to Randwick, massive 3 Group 1s, but let's get to how this track's going to play, Nico. So, true position the entire circuit. I'm assuming it's been beautiful conditions up there. You're in the shirt. It has had the sun on the back. Good for. How do we think this intel's going to be? What do we think this track's going to do?
Pretty traditional for Randwick Rail True is what we're hearing. They did give it a good drink there, I think, on Tuesday. So it came up a soft 5 at acceptance time. Unless they overwater it, it should be a good 4 on Saturday. No questions at all. Maybe just with the feedback from Rosehill last Saturday, because it was, bordering in the firm range, even though we didn't get the upgrade. They're going to keep the water at it this week. And so we just got to remain a little bit nimble as to what happens over the next 48 hours. But I think what we're going to look at, even if they do overwater it, it's going to be even more of your not traditional, but even more off-rail. So at this stage, we're looking at lanes 4 and beyond being the best ground. There's some real golden lanes we're told out around lanes sort of 15 and 16. Whether or not we do have the field sizes to get there, we just got to see what happens. A lot will depend on what the leaders do. Once the pattern becomes apparent, quite often they don't go right the way out, but they'll go at least 2 or 3 off the inside part of the track. That will help those bigger fields get out to those real golden lanes. But otherwise, I think you can focus on the bulk of the winners coming from lanes 4 to 11. And because it's a bit off rail, we should see off-pace runners in with a chance.
Okay, beautiful. That's the intel for Randwick on Saturday. Let's get to the 3 feature races. We're going to start with, obviously, the best of them. It's the Epsom Handicap. Just an outrageously good race through time. Whether this one's probably going to stack up, well, that'll be whether maybe the winner comes out and continues on being a superstar in the making, possibly. But other than that, you could easily identify that it's a light on Epsom compared to previous editions, Nico. Here's the PointsBet market. She's been a bit of a drifter early doors. Obviously, a lot of people are probably worried about that map, but we'll get to that, and maybe you don't need to be so worried about it. But she has been in the red. She's now black figures. I speak of Autumn Glow. Support for Pericles, who's probably got a really nice soft map in comparison to her. Chow Wolf is in the market. Even a horse like Pia is in the market as well. But let's get to your map. You take it away. How you think this race, the Epsom 2025, evolves?
Yeah, look, I think the Waterhouse and Bot Train fully lit will come across from gate 8 and lead. Now, outside lead, I've got Magneteer here on the map. Now, there's a little caveat here. His initial gate speed, his first 200 metres split, is quicker than Yellow Brick. So I think they're going to try and cross Yellow Brick as quickly as they can. If they don't get across him in the first couple of 100 metres, then it's Yellow Brick who probably then comes across and sits outside lead, and Magneteer possibly ends up 3 wide, no cover. Now, if that happens, then Autumn Glow, I think, probably slots into the 3 wide with Trail. Some people will be looking at this going, how does Pierre end up behind Autumn Glow because he's drawn underneath her? If I was riding Pierre, I would let her cross, because there's also the chance that regardless of who ends up 3 wide, no cover, whether it's Magneteer or Yellow Brick or maybe someone else, I could have it all completely wrong, there's a chance that whoever ends up in that spot zooms around and goes and sits outside lead and injects a fair bit of pace into the race. And there's a long run until they get to that top corner from the mile start. If that eventuates, the great spot for Pierre to be is on Autumn Glow's back, because she's then 3 wide, no cover, and you want to be on her back. So I think if I was riding Pierre, I'd let Autumn Glow cross in the hope that whoever is facing the breeze 3 wide goes right on with the job. Then you've got a fast run mile, a mare that's unbeaten, first go at a mile in a fast run race, 3 wide punching the breeze. Not an ideal setup. You'd love to be on her back if that unfolds. Run of the race, I think, depth of character. A 4-year-old, they've got a good record in the race, probably gets that nice trail. Pericles should sit in behind them. We need a little bit of luck just with the fence being off on the day. Penman's got a bit of upside. He's got that sort of nice middle run. And I think horses like NCAP and Swift Falcon have to get a long way back. Plenty of people on social media talking about will he do it. It was very good first up. He's obviously got no issue with 1,600 metres, having run in a derby as a 3-year-old. I do have him sort of mapping back along the inside, maybe with Charwolf to his outside. So he's just going to need a bit of luck to get out at the right time. So quite an interesting map to do. I sort of enjoyed trying to work out how the jockeys might play it, but I think Autumn Glow gets 3 wide with a bit of cover.
I think this is really important for the viewers to understand is as soon as we see the barrier draw, the first article that's written is Autumn Glow faces tough task 14 from 14. And it's just lazy because at the end of the day, until you've done your map and how the race shape is, you don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. Now, you've already given us the intel that, lanes 4+ is an advantage. So already you can sort of get the idea that outside barriers won't be a death knell in that regard. And then you've also mentioned, okay, well, this is how it sets up for Autumn Glow, that she could end up with the right backside and have 3 wide trail, which means gate 14 is not going to be an issue. Now, here's the other part to it is, when you're doing a speed map, gate 14 of 14 can be terrible, as you've mentioned, if she is the one that ends up facing the breeze by herself. But you've created that by doing the hard work and doing the map and saying, here are the actual possibilities, instead of just saying she's drawn 14, she can't win or makes it hard. You need to drill down into your map and work out, okay, well, what's the race shape going to do? Is she going to be 3 wide, no cover in a fastly run race? Well, yeah, then she becomes a bit of a probably risk. But if she does find the right backside and it's just a moderate tempo and the rail's doing what it's doing and the track's playing the way she's playing, then its body chips in. It's got nothing to do with gate 14 of 14. Anyway, that's just my opinion on that kind of stuff. Do you want to play in the race or do we wait for your set?
We can wait for the set, but 8 of the last 13 winners have drawn a double-digit barrier in the Epsom anyway. Typically, the Epsom's a bigger field, but you usually want to be a bit off the rail in this type of race. Yeah, I want to play in the race. I just think you've got to back her. I mean, fair dinkum. It's just the black figures for a horse of this quality is unbelievable. 54.5 kilos. She'll be winning on Saturday. Don't worry about that.
Nice. Very good. That's the Epsom Handicap. Good details, speed map. Don't worry about just what the barrier says. Let's get to the Metropolitan. Points bet market for the Metropolitan over 2,400 metres, Group 1 race. It's an interesting one. So very flat open market here. Birdman was your early favourite, but it's drawn 17 and it probably is the one that has to go all the way back. So that's a situation where you understand why the market could probably take a set against it, but we'll take the map very shortly. Soul of Spain, sort of the equal price there as well. Good support for it. Good support for Travolta, another one of Waller's horses. Vauban's in the market. Etna Ross is another one that's been supported sort of since Wednesday. So deep open race doesn't end there. Map, all I could say here is I think this is genuine tempo.
Yeah, absolutely, Jules. I've got changing of the guard going forward and probably leading like he did last time out. That worked for him then. So you'd think they're going to adopt similar tactics. Sun and Sand, this is a horse that ran in the Oaks behind Treasure of the Moment, led them up in the Collins Stephen one by Piggyback 7 days ago. Got good early speed figures. Expect her to go and roll and sit outside the lead. I think Vauban gets a nice economical run in behind the pace. Then it's a little bit messy. I've had a crack at it to do my best, but I think Arapaho comes across, big weight, probably doesn't want to get buried away amongst horses, wants that nice clear air. So I think he'll probably be positive out of the barriers and it'll be more Sun and Sand pressing on to cross him, if that makes any sense.
Yep.
Your mate, Soul of Spain, I think he can get across in front of Royal Supremacy early doors if they want that spot. I think they need to, because if they don't, they might be the one punching the breeze 3 wide, no cover. Royal Supremacy is a great map horse, I think, in this race because it should be a genuine tempo and he gets the back of Soul of Spain for mine. The ones that could be 3 wide, no cover, Don Diego de Vega, Sons of Sun, Juju Kibo, and even Birdman. They might have to go right back to the tail of the field on him, so that probably reduces his chances to some degree. I think the map sets up well for Soul of Spain, providing he can get across Royal Supremacy and Royal Supremacy. They're the 2 horses I think map pretty well in this race, particularly Royal Supremacy.
You want to play in the Metrop?
I think Royal Supremacy is a good each-way bet. It was a slowly run Newcastle Cup, Julesy, and I know you're big on Soul of Spain, but I think he's got a quicker turn of foot, better acceleration. I think this rolling tempo and the ability to sort of have horses off the bit a long way out will suit Royal Supremacy.
Yeah. Sort of totally agree with that. And I think this is another one for the viewers to try and understand is that I've played early doors into Soul of Spain in the futures. Now then I sit down on Wednesday night and I do the Metrop. Now then I just remove what my thoughts already are of Soul of Spain because it's irrelevant. I've already got that running. So I don't go, because I'm in Soul of Spain's corner from a futures perspective, I have to be in Soul of Spain's corner when I do a final field market. It has to change a bit. I mean, I've marked him equal $6 favourite. I haven't got him like $3.50 and I go, he's the one, blah, blah, blah. But because it's such a flat open market, I can't do too much else with the race. I'm probably going to be left holding the baby with him and probably not do too much else because I've got my flat open market. I probably end up, there's no point laying him. And if I have 3 or 4 other goes, I still easily can miss. And then I have to churn 3 or 4 extra goes to get, some type of profit out of it. You just end up holding the baby with Soul of Spain. So give it strength. But just because I think the lesson here is just because you have something going in the futures doesn't mean when you do final field markets, it should all be just all about it. You have to look at it from a different perspective. That is the Metrop. Let's get to the third of the Group 1s. It's the Flight Stakes. PointsBet market here. Apocalyptic. It's done the right thing. It's last two performances been outstanding. Tupacara comes out of the same race as Apocalyptic. I can understand that. Queen of Clubs. It's a horse that could be on for better things down the spring, maybe a little bit later on. This map, mate, there is no tempo in this race for me, and I feel like the leader that you're probably going to have, I thought if it was a fast run, 1,600 metres, it had no hope, and now the way this race shape is, it starts to come back in with a bit of a winning chance.
Yeah, Tupacara, I think, goes to the front. I find it difficult. I'll put my hands up here and say I find it difficult doing speed maps for these 3-year-old races when they go up to a new trip. It's the same it will be with the Spring Champion Stakes in the coming weeks. You never know. Being a data analyst, I know what I think, but what also matters is what the trainers of these fillies think. I remember hearing the Friedman camp on record talking about Apocalyptic as a juvenile, and they were being concerned about this galloper, if it went to Brisbane, going up in distance to 1,300 or 1,400 metres. So I'm not saying they still think that, but it was once a thought in their head. The point I'm making here is if a trainer thinks, Tupacara can't lead and win over a mile, we need a softer run in transit, then this speed map just goes down the dunny.
Well, and the ambulance will lead them if that's the case because there is no speed whatsoever.
So, Magenta Skies went back in a slowly run provincial race, so it surely has to go back, but they might feel as though she was just too good for him in that race and they might think up to this trip we get our chance to go forward. Anything could really happen, but for the sake of having a crack, Tupacara should lead. I think Enviable and Lighthouse Lass. Enviable, I think, has got to go forward. It's the one that might appreciate going up in trip, and it might be the one that enjoys sort of dictating the pace of this race. And it might fancy its chances at drawing the sprint out of a couple of other runners, so be wary of that. Within the Law needs to get an economical run, so I think 3 back the rail actually suits that filly, even though it's traditionally not a good spot to be. I've got Apocalyptic 1-1, but I'm not, completely sold that I've got that position right. I know you're going to ask me, am I going to play in the race? You look at the T-Rows and you think to yourself, how do any of these fillies behind her turn the tables on Apocalyptic? And the short answer is they probably can't. If you want to rough in the race, I do think it's Enviable. She's by Frankel. I touched on it a moment ago. She settled midfield in the T-Rows. I think she's better positioned up on top of the speed, and I think she's the one that could turn this into a bit more of a stamina test than what some of these other fillies like. So at around that sort of $21, $26 mark, she might be an each-way play if you don't want to take the tomato sauce about Apocalyptic.
Quick one without notice here, Nico. Could Queen of Clubs settle closer? I loved her through the line, but do you think they're sort of looking after her knowing that there is probably a bit more in her in terms of 2,000 metres plus, so they'll be a little bit neutral negative?
I think so. I think their main goal with her is the VRC Oaks. So how much they're going to want to use her up over 1,600 metres is the query. A lot of people will look at this. If you've got an Oaks filly, it's a bit like when we're talking about Dealist in the Turnbull. You don't want to teach them bad habits and run second or third. Do you know what I mean? So, or even fourth or fifth. So they're probably looking at this as we'll take our medicine again and finish through the line. If we get a Group 1 placing, great. We move on to, whatever, the Wakeful and then the Oaks, hopefully.
Beautiful. Great in-depth analysis. All speed maps involved. Epsom, Metrop and Flight Stakes. All right, Nico, let's get to my Victorian set. It's Turnbull Stakes Day. We've seen a lot of these horses, so I'm pretty keen to bet. We're going to get good conditions. I think the track's going to race really well. Competitive field, so we're going to get some good, solid prices throughout. I want to start in the first. This is a really interesting race. There's a lot of horses, or a few horses that come out of this race. She's an Artist was a short price favourite and probably was below market expectations. Persian Spirit won at any old odds. But there was a horse called Stolly Bolly that James McDonald rode. It seemed to be the one that came out wide by itself. It was sort of just left there and it was outstanding through the line. This was 1,100 metres. It gets to 1,200 metres. Its best figure has been at 1,200 metres, albeit at Moonee Valley. It ticked off the Flemington straight box for me. I just think if you can play 1x3 Stolly Bolly, it's the safest of all these bets. I get she's an Artist and I've marked it around that price. Now, whether it can if it ends up spitting out to 320, 330 when we're sitting at the Osborne on Saturday, Nico, then I'll probably end up backing she's an Artist as well. But it was just ordinary, I thought, first up. And I know there can be excuses for it, but her price is so dependent on that big number that she did early doors in her career at Flemington, I think at her second race start, and just don't know if that's now become an outlier. I couldn't really find any excuses. So I thought Stolly Bolly was the one I wanted to be with. That kicks us off. Race 3, this is a really good sort of lead up to possibly, I think we'll probably end up having a new VRC Derby favourite. I don't know what it'll be, but usually this 1,800 metre race, I don't think the 3-year-olds are that strong in staying rank. So I think the market will be really reactive to this race. I'm going to back 2 horses. I'm going to back one from your neck of the woods to begin with, Nico, in number 3, Officiate. Look, it was a midweek race, but I've got that race going really well. And you look at it and you go, there wasn't many margins, but I just loved how it was through the line. Chris Waller, James McDonald, they go blinkers first time. So I think up to 1,800 metres, soft draw, sets up really well. I think there's some really ordinary numbers in the Melbourne horses, so I want to be a different form line. Officiate gives me that. The camp obviously is solid. I also just want to back Cacao, who just won a maiden last start, but it actually really rolled along and was well inside standard time, so I tick over a second inside standard. Its last 400, 200 was pretty cactus compared to the rest of the day, but again, getting up to 1,800 metres, Blake Shin, absorb pressure, it just might be really strong. A horse I'm happy to be at double figures. Race 4, again, trusting the different form line here. I've got a bit of a chink in the Melbourne form line. I want to be with Just a Journey. You'll probably be better placed in talking about this to me, Nico, but Canterbury, I know it led there. It probably was flattered. There is that overwhelming thought process that leaders at Canterbury, the ROI would be great.
Yeah, it generally is. Sometimes the fence can be off. I actually made her a horse to follow out of the meeting. I thought that it was a super performance. And I know that she comes to this race with a mile run or 1550 run under the belt. So I don't think she has to lead on Saturday. I'm not sure if she will. But I think she's one you definitely got to keep an eye on. I wrote a column a couple of Mondays ago saying I thought if the stable wanted to, they'd have a fair indication because they've got Apocalyptic. They could go to the Flight Stakes with her and potentially get a Group 1 placing, because I don't think the fillies behind Apocalyptic are necessarily that good.
Yep.
So I felt like that was there for the taking. They've opted to go to the down your way and go for some softer targets. So I think she's right in the mix.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting too. So I ran some numbers on Michael Friedman, and it's 10 from 38 going at 26% win strike rate versus the high market expectation of 24%. So you're winning money. That's solid. That's great. That's overall. Victorian numbers, and this is the bit. So I've backed this horse. So I'm like, when I read this, I was like, when I looked at this, 0 from 18, so nothing versus the market expectation of 10%. Then I drilled down further in single figures in Victoria. It's 0 from 8, and the market expectation's at 16% and 1 placing. So in Victoria, it's ice cold, but overall outstanding, and I'm trusting that he's going to right the wrongs there with Just a Journey in race 4. Race 7, you win and you're in the Bart Cummings. Well, this horse, geez, it's so well placed. Big drop in weight. Does lose Zara. I talk about Gilded Water. Markets definitely found it. There's no spoil on price. Jamie Mellum in the saddle. This is a horse that does things wrong, and Zara's been able to stand over it a little bit and control it and boss it. Jamie Mellum won't do that, but what Jamie will do is she's got beautiful hands and she'll be able to get this horse hopefully to settle over this distance. If she can, it wins this race and becomes a major player probably into the Melbourne Cup. And in race 8, we've spoken about it. I want to back half yours in the Turnbull. I just think he gets right spot, right time. He's probably not the best horse in the race, but being the best horse in the race doesn't always mean you're guaranteed success. I just think he catches these, as I said, maybe 1/5 underdone, and he's ready to rock and roll coming out of that fast run naturalism over 2,000 metres, half yours. He's the speed map horse. That's my set for Victoria. I'll probably add a few more. If you're at the Osborne, you're going to catch a few more because we'll be betting into most races there. So don't forget that day. Your New South Wales set for Randwick, mate.
Yeah, let's kick it off in the Group 1 Flight Stakes. Look, she should just be going out and win Apocalyptic. I think she's a bit too good for him. I reckon you might have 3 or 4 units on her to win. So you turn a small profit if she does get the cash. But have a unit each way on Enviable. I'm convinced that this filly, her best option is to go forward from the White Gate. If she goes forward just with that pedigree, she has a little bit of stamina over some of her rivals. She's got the ability to dictate the pace or the option to dictate the pace outside the lead. And just fourth up at the mile, an extra run under the belt. She's one that could do me there. Over to race 7. This is the Premier Stakes. Brias is your odds-on favourite. I think Jimmy can knock him off. I'm in love with both of them. I think one of these two are going to win the race. But I just saw Jimmy Starr, just with that inside part of the track being inferior. He's going to be probably a lane or 2 wider than Briasa in the home straight. That might just be the advantage that Jimmy needs. I think first up, talking to a couple of yard judges, they said he had a fair bit of improvement in him. It was almost like a barrier trial looking at the way he paraded apparently. So I'm expecting him to strip fitter and probably present the races more how he traditionally does first up when he's having his second run this campaign. Moving on to the feature, which is the Epsom Handicap. I just think here, Jules, you've got what is possibly the best horse in Australia, and I know people might hound me for saying that with Via Sistina, Adliana and whatnot going around in weight for age races and Cox Plates, but Autumn Blow could honestly be the best horse in the country. We're going to find out in the next few starts, if not maybe in the autumn. She's in with 54.5 kilos. I know she's got a wide gate, but I think if she drew the right gate and mapped well, you'd be taking $1.70 about her. Yeah. So I think that 220 around town at the moment, I think it's a good price for a horse of her ability. Moving on to the lucky last, the Chevy Chase, as I say, the Chevy Chase bet. Race 10, go down to number 10, Kerguelen. This horse was huge the other day. He's only just recently switched to Joey Pride stable 2 starts ago. He won at his first run for Joe on a heavy 10, then went to a soft 5. He ran some of the best late splits of the day, went third there over 1,100 metres at Rose Hill. If you watch the replay, I think he probably should have won the race, which means he's probably 2 from 2 for Joey. He seems to have fit that Joey mould. And when Joe gets these tried runners over the years, I've seen it happen before, the ones that go well under him just keep going well. He's quite soft on his horses. Kerguelen's got a very good fresh record. So I just wonder if he's appreciating that Joe Pride training. When Joey goes out to track work on a Tuesday morning, his horses don't break 37 for the last 600 metres. He doesn't use race jockeys. He's got his own stable jockeys specifically for track work. And that, I think, is what is making the big difference for Kerguelen, who already had plenty of ability in the bonnet. So he's my get out for the day, Julesy.
Love that. So that's the set for New South Wales from Nico's. Plenty in that. My set, obviously, for Victoria for Flemington. And as we said, there'll be still a few that we're going to hold up our sleeve for those people that do attend the Osborne on Saturday, 12 till 6. We'll be there. Make sure you come along. It will be lots of fun. Righto, Nico, let's get to Larry's letterbox. People have just been throwing things via carrier pigeon and everything else that you can do to get involved in your psyche of your head. What have you got this week?
Scary place to be. Look, a lot of people writing in about the Turnbull Stakes. Why is it such a pivotal race? We touched on how it's provided 9 Caulfield Cup and Melbourne Cup winners over the last 20-odd years, 8 Cox Plate winners. It's a true track as well. There's usually not too many excuses. Sometimes when we race at other tracks, it's hard to make ground or the fence is completely off or whatever. Flemington's usually really reliable in terms of its track condition. So that's one thing I'd say. And also just it gives most horses a chance. It's at that stage of the preparation. But a couple of questions coming through talking about Aliana. I don't want to cue the Banana Splits music again for those that have been watching this show for a while. But One question that I pulled out, which is pretty good, was if Aliana gets beaten by Via Sistina, how does the Wallet Camp justify to Aliana's owners that they should press on to a Cox Plate when she is going to meet Via Sistina worse at the weights? The answer is I don't know. And that's kind of why I think you should back her on Saturday, because the bloke named Chris Waller is an absolute genius. He'll probably go down as the greatest trainer of all time. It's freakish to think that he's already won 6 Turnbulls, which is the equal most ever in history. Lee Friedman's got that, shares that number with him. And Friedman's just retired recently. He won't be training any more Turnbull winners. Chris has probably got another 15 to 20 years left of training. So God knows how many more he's going to get. He's won 6 of the last 10. So I don't know what your thoughts are there, but the Turnbull is, you've already touched on it, it's a pivotal race in the spring. And I tend to agree. I think she's got to beat Via Sistina on Saturday.
So here's the question. If she doesn't, though, is there some justification that Chris can go, yeah, no worries, what we're going to do is actually we're going to freshen up and go to the Golden Eagle just to throw another spanner in the works. But you know what I mean? You know when you go, oh, okay, cool, so now we're going to go to the Caulfield Cup. And he goes, yeah, nah, she just pulled up a little bit scratchy, so we're going to just give her another week or two, and then she's going to run in the Golden Eagle. Do you know what I mean? This is just where the mind just starts to warp into the wrong spaces.
It's a terrible space to be, and it's where my head is. And if your head is where my head is, you got problems, baby.
What about binoculars for this week? Horses that we've sort of want to identify, not so much from Saturday, but horses that what they need to do on Saturday possibly go, okay, that's the one maybe for a bigger target down the track.
Well, I want to turn this back to you, all right, because you're our man in Melbourne. The Turnbull Stakes for mine's probably the best race of the card. No disrespect to anything up here. I love my Sydney racing, but I think it's the race that we're going to learn more from than anything else in Australia. Probably one of the most informative races in 2025, this Turnbull Stakes on Saturday. My question to you is, you're a half yours, man. You think he can win the race on Saturday? Let's play devil's advocate here for a second. He doesn't win. What do you got to see from him if he doesn't win to justify being Caulfield Cup favourite?
If he doesn't win, I want an unlucky run, and I don't know how. The thing is, from the map, that the way I've seen this horse, he has to finish top 3. And I know people are saying, gee, that's a big ask for a horse, first time, weight for age. But I just think from the map perspective and the lead-in, the platform that this horse has got over the rivals, I want to see it finish top 3, because it might end up against an Aliana in 2 weeks' time or 3 weeks' time in a Caulfield Cup. And I want it to be beating at home because it's got the better platform on Saturday than Aliana. And Aliana's then going to have the 2,000-metre go. So I'm bullish about this horse, but he needs to do the right thing from that map. Now, if he'd drawn 11, mate, and was all the way back, I'd say just run through the line. I don't care where you finish. I don't care if you finish 5th or 6th.
So the map's the determining factor here.
The map's the one where you go, you're going to be ahead of a few of these. You're going to be 5th or 6th. You need to be right in the finish of this race. And if you're not, put it this way, if he has the perfect run in transit and finishes 6th or 7th, he can't win the Caulfield Cup. He won't be winning the Caulfield Cup. Whether he drops in weight or not, it just won't be happening.
What about quickly, Sir Delius? He's the current Melbourne Cup favourite, so half yours is the Caulfield Cup favourite. You haven't been spruiking him in the same manner. What's he got to do on Saturday to stay at the top of the market for the Melbourne Cup?
I just think he has to be solid.
Assuming Gilded Water wins the Cummings as well. I want to put that one into your head.
He just has to be solid, because I think this horse is building to 3,200. As we spoke about with the Underwood, I just don't think that race went that good, so I'm not worried about it. So I think he just has to be solid and finish top 4 for me, Sir Delius, and he's still in the Melbourne Cup path.
Okay, top 3. So in summary, Caulfield Cup, top 3 for half yours, otherwise bidding for the Caulfield Cup. Yep. Top 4 for Sir Delius in the Turnbull, otherwise bidding for the Melbourne Cup. Gilded Water has to win to be the Melbourne Cup
and
chance.
Be impressive. Has to win and be impressive. No doubt about that.
Okay.
We're done. Righto, Nico, for the punters out there, let's give them a quaddie number. We like to play in the quaddies on big days like this. We think the pool's big. We think there's some just some extra magic in it. So I think these are the ones you want to play at. Don't like to play them usually, but happy to play now. This is my quaddie numbers. You'll see it graphically represented. First leg, 1 out, Gilded Water. Think it wins the Bart Cummings. Then we go 1, 6, 7, 10, 13 second leg. And what people will just realise now is there is no Via Sustina. And when I play quaddies, if I was to get Gilded Water into Via Sustina, it's going to have no value. There's just no point in taking it. So we need Via Sustina to get beaten in the second leg. Third leg, no War Machine. So it's 4, 5, 7, 8, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And then we come home 3, 9, and 12. $150 gets you 100%. But the key factor there is we're taking on a couple of favourites to hopefully get a split. New South Wales, what do you got for me?
Gee, I love that, mate. We're kicking off in the Premier Stakes is the first leg. I think it's going to be between Briasa and Jimmy Star. So I've just gone those two. Epsom Handicap gone 1 out on Autumn Glow. It's caviar or bust. Hate to use the word caviar, of course, in racing circles. I think you can go pretty wide in the Metrop. It's an open race. The original favourite, Birdman's drawn poorly. He's got to go back. He can still win with luck, so I've included him. But I have played that race quite wide. Coming home with 5, 6, 10 and 18. Now, that's the two roughies in that last is Beauty Charge and ex-Hong Kong galloper having its first run back for your man, Matty Smith.
Yep.
You might be able to shed some intel there. And Cosmonova for my team, Proven Thoroughbreds. She's been a bit unlucky in some of her recent runs. Back to 1,200 metres suits. And I think at $21, she's actually not a little bad play in the last race, but I am pretty keen on Kirk Whalen.
Beautiful. Love that. So there are our quaddies. Now let's get to our plays of the day. The one that we're most keen on, but as I said, everything that as we both say, everything that's in our set we do back, and we'll be backing extras at the Osborne again. Do not miss out there. Race 4, number 5 for me at Flemington, Just a Journey. Comes down from Sydney. James McDonald on. Think it can settle in the first 2 or 3. I like its ratings compared to the Melbourne Phillies ratings. Be with Just a Journey. And you're in the Epsom.
Yeah, speaking of J-Mac, he wanted to ride Autumn Glow, didn't he? But he got his marching orders from Chris Waller to go down and ride Via Sustina, so that's interesting. Race 8, number 4, Autumn Glow. I think the fact that we're getting black figures, we'll look back and go, how did we let that go round? $2, what is she, 25?
Love that. So that's Just a Journey and Autumn Glow. Again, if you're in the area, please get to the Osborne. If you're not in the area, get a bus, get a taxi, get a plane, get a boat, get your shoes.
Get a camel.
Get to the Osborne. 12 till 6 p.m. We'll be there all day. We'll be having fun. Please get around us. We will be handing out merchandise. We'll be handing out everything. It'll just be a nice, fun, gentle day. NRL weekend up there in Sydney, Sunday. Nico, very quickly, who you with?
Broncos Storm. They've played each other 9 times in finals, 6-3 to the Storm. In 4 of those 6 occasions, they've won by 16 points or more. Storm 13 plus.
Go the Storm. Bye for now. I'll see you Saturday.
Yeah, you will, mate. See you then.
What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.